Real Life Radio presents Catholic psychiatrist Dr. Michelle Fiorella, reflecting and exploring the connection of Sunday's liturgy and how that message applies to our often seemingly out of control lives. And now, Dr. Michelle.
Well, this is Dr. Michelle, and welcome back. We're looking at the fifth Sunday of Lent. We are looking at the Gospel of John 11, verse 1 through 45, the raising of Lazarus from the dead. Amazing, beautiful thought, and not only just that kind of miracle, something that is beyond. There's a thing where, maybe you could eventually justify the blind seeing and the lame walking, which really, during that time when all those miracles had happened, that was it. They were in their own coffins, their own graves. They're the graves of their society. A Samaritan was a Samaritan, and you bypassed that town. But that Samaritan woman, when Jesus came by, he didn't bypass the town. He went to that town, and she gave him water. He asked her for water, and she got out of her chains, the chains of the day, a woman in the middle of the day, meaning she was an outcast anyway. She could have been a prostitute. She could have just lost her husband and been cast to the wind as they were, maybe having to marry 7 of his brothers. We don't know what the whole story was, but we know that it wasn't good. She wasn't with the other women in the early part of the morning or the late part of night going to the well. She went when nobody else would go. So she was an outcast, the leper's outcast, blind from birth. What did he do? He couldn't do anything but beg. Even his parents rejected him in their own way. They were afraid. So fear and rejection and being outcast. And we're told over and over again, we're shown the blind will see, the lame will walk, the dead will be risen. And this is something that even the apostles at that time, even though they were shown over and over again, they still took everything literally. We take it literally oftentimes. Even though when we're praying, we're at church, we try not to, and we try to get to that spiritual enlightenment. And again, I guess the word is try. Oftentimes the times that we really are infused with God is when we stop trying. And we just breathe Him in, and we're there, We show up. That's all they ask us to do is show up. Where adoration is a beautiful place, but during Mass, a beautiful place, the whole consecration, communion, whatever it is. But he also says, look, I've got all this outside the building as well. Look at this. This is the earth I give you. It's written in the sky. It's in the breeze of the trees. This is constantly renewal. Right now, I'm looking out a window. I'm in my son's house. I'm looking out his window. There isn't a leaf to be seen, but if I look real closely, there's a bud, a little bud. And as I told you earlier and shared with you about this being the anniversary time of the death of my grandchild 2 years ago, I'm also in this house because there's a 2-week-old beautiful baby girl. So there's birth and life and life and death. My brother died at age of 33. I know what it is to want your brother not to die, to see him sick and to think, okay, I want what you need to have done for you, but I almost don't care. I just want you around. I don't care what happens. I just want you around. So we have these things. God knows that. So what happens to us, though? What do we do? How do we get away from this ability to even start those little seeds to where we are rejoicing in this regeneration? Thank goodness we have Lent. Thank goodness we have their sacraments. Thank goodness we have adoration. Thank goodness we're encouraged to be contemplative, to look outside, to take part in nature, because nature is amazing. God said to Job that he directed him, he instructed him, ask the birds. He didn't say, look how gorgeous everything was. He said, ask the birds, they will tell you. Ask the fish of the sea, they will show you. Ask the earth, it will tell you. Because this is his. This is nature. We are natural beings. He is supernatural. So keep in mind that all this, it's all the above. We are not supposed to just rise out of our bodies and just be the spiritual person every once in a while and then come back into these vessels. We are the vessel and we are the spirit, and that drop of God is always in us. So when we look at this, what are some of the things that kill us? What are some of the things that harm us? Now we know the usual, the things that are soul killers, the gluttony, and the gluttony for what? Not just food, the gluttony for everything, the lust, the misuse, the the avarice, the jealousy, all these things, because what do? If you think about how you feel when you indulge in some of these things, and I don't mean indulge as if you're eating chocolate. Sometimes we just begin to something strikes us and we get a hurt feeling. And once we get that hurt feeling, we start going down this path. Now, what happens? We start to feel heavier. We start to feel lower in our bodies. We start to feel it in our chest, our stomachs. We don't rise up. And what are all of our words? We rise up. We lift up our hearts. Things are, the cathedrals of old were built for a reason, to rise us up. Everything is up. Look up. Things are looking up today. There's a reason we have that. It's because the feelings inside, the light of God is an uplifting light. We have the light of God depicted over and over again as a fire above our heads, the Holy Spirit. So again, these are things that are uplifting, they're enlightening, they thin us out. So when we look at our self-defeatism, defeating our own selves, defeating our family, making up our own rules, wanting something so bad in the material world that we're willing to ignore the signs inside of ourselves. These are things that are very important to question during this time of Lent. That is a really good reason why we are encouraged to give up some things, so that we take away our shiny baubles, we take away our self-deprecations, we take away our again, if we're constantly trying to say, you should be better, you should be this, you should be that, we leave no room for the light above to shine upon us. So go back and take that concept of whose fault is it anyway? Who made this happen? And Jesus said, it isn't anyone's fault. It's not anyone's fault. It is. Whatever is needs to be, and whatever needs to be is. It's a circle. It sounds a little confusing, but it's really very simple. It's the same thing that we're told over and over. Don't try to second guess. Whatever is needs to be. Whatever needs to be is. So in this gospel, we know that there was a message. The sisters, Mary and Martha, sent this message to Jesus. And it was like, Lord, the man you love is ill. Isn't that an amazing sentence? So what we're knowing then, John he's very good at detail in all these gospels that he writes. Very good at detail. And these details are in here for a reason. But it's very important because it shows us that the man of Jesus loved. Human love. He loved. We know John. He loved John. He loved his disciples. But here Lazarus, very close. He knows Martha and Mary. We know he knows them. They're here and there, very comfortable with him. And he sent this message. And his words were, this sickness will not end in death, but in God's glory. So that must have been a bit confusing. So, okay, if that's the truth, then why the heck are you still sitting here? Why aren't you running over there and making sure he doesn't die? The disciples are even kind of wondering with all this. But he loved, the gospel says, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet, when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed where he was. He didn't go there. So he could have gone, but he didn't. And it further goes on, not only did he not go, but he waited for those 3 days. And as you look at it and you look historically, it is significant, it could be significant anyway, it's thought to be significant, that in those days they believed that, and it may even be true, that the soul hung around the body. Some cultures believe it's 2 weeks, but they believed that at least 3 days the soul hangs around the body before it goes on. So to even cast away any doubt that this could have been a natural process where the person's soul decides to go back in the body, or as they know in those days, and even in many days, even in the 1800s, people were thought dead that were not dead, and they would just spontaneously start breathing again. This is a common thing. This is why they used to put bells on top of the graves, because this did happen. People would be in a coma, or they would be look like they were dead, but they didn't have the instruments. The stethoscope is only a couple hundred years old, so they didn't have the instruments to know what could or could not be someone actually living, breathing, or whatever, if they were too shallow to know. So leaving all shadow of a doubt, he waited until Lazarus was dead for several days and beyond the third day. So he waited to the fourth day. And then when he went there, what's the first thing that was said to him? The first thing that was said to him was, with weeping and sadness, the people he loved came to him and said, you could have saved him had you come here. Basically, they're saying, why did you let us down? Why did you not do this for us, the people you loved? You know, and if we were now in present day, would we not say, have a tendency to say, will you say for the least of these? Well, aren't I the least of these? Why aren't you doing this for me? And Jesus has a very different thing to talk to them about. And we'll look at that when we come back from the break. We'll also look at how this again translates for us in 2014. This is Dr. Michelle, and we will return after the break.
We'll be back with more on the Dr. Michelle Show on your Catholic station, Real Life Radio.